Hello, everybody. Good to see you again. Good to talk to you. I'm talking a little bit today about dealing with your fears. I remember one of my earliest fearful memories was going and getting a loaf of bread and a pretzel for my mom. And while I was going to get the pretzel, some older girl tried to stop me. I had to be like 4 or 5 years old. And as I was walking to the local store up on Sterling Avenue in Joliet, as I'm walking up there, she tried to stop me because my mom gave me a little change purse, and so I had a coin. And she probably gave me no more than a quarter. You know, I think a pretzel was a penny or something like that back in the old days. But I remember that, and I remember just she tried to take my stuff, and I ran, and she couldn't catch me. And I also remember waking up one time, and I had bronchitis as a kid and a child. And I remember waking up in a tent and freaking out. I was like in like a tent with humidity and air and stuff like that. And so there were some scary moments. I think we all face scary moments. I also remember as I went along that there were times where my perfectionism, my fears manifested in different ways, and that I wanted to be perfect. I had to be excellent. And I think there's a difference. A whole other talk would be on excellence and perfectionism. Simply put, I believe God put in me a desire for excellence, the desire to do things exceptionally. But when it's fear-driven, it's perfectionism, and it becomes a slavery, and the very thing I've been created to do becomes painful and hard to do. That I pursue excellence as an act of worship now at this stage. I learned probably when I was about 25, I really only compete against myself and the talents God has given me. The Bible says to compare yourself with one another or with each other is unwise, and it's true. But that perfectionism had to be overcome, and so I look at the things along the way. But certainly by high school, I was pretty had goals, had set some ambitious things, and I wanted to succeed. So there was a fear that would drive me. I also remember times, hearing the thought like, "Oh, stupid," and I was never a stupid person. I was never driven by those things would sometimes drive you. There's a place where you pursue excellence, but sometimes you hear stupid be like this shame or this thing like, "Oh yeah, you blew it again." And over time, I've never ceased to have those opportunities, from trying cases to taking walks at night. I remember just God challenging me to begin to pray and to take walks. And I would take walks out at night. Now, this is when I was a young attorney, and I would make sure I'd pray an hour and a half, and I'd take these walks, and they were long walks, and they were night, and along railroad tracks, and all this crazy stuff. And it's amazing that the fears that can come upon you. We all have fears, from trying some of your first cases to those walks at night to having a sick child with a high fever. That's another scary thing. We all need to deal with fears, because fear or faith is how we live. Some people give up on fear or faith, or they just adopt fear and they say there's no faith. But I want you to know, faith is a courageous thing. Faith is like a muscle that challenges us to move forward. If we don't deal with our fears, it seems like they will fall upon us. I often say, well, here's this fear. Why is it here? Why am I afraid? God, is this fear normal? Is this a situation that'll pass? Is everything going to be all right? Is this my fear or somebody else's fear? Because sometimes we can intuitively or spiritually pick up on the fears of other people around us. By the time 1998 came around, it was the transition into full-time pastoring and out of full-time law and full-time pastoring. But I started asking myself, what's the worst case scenario of this? If everything blows up, in the church or what happens, I can always go back and just practice the law. But by that time, God had showed himself so faithful. I'm like, if God asked me to do this, why wouldn't I do this? The passage when I've been walking, whether it's a lawyer or as a small business owner or as a pastor, one of the key phrases, key Bible passages, I've yet to see the righteous forsaken or their children begging for bread. I held on to those things. See, faith is it's a force. It's like a muscle that if you use, it becomes strong. It pushes back against the darkness. So why am I talking about this? I woke up this morning and I spent a little extra time in prayer because I was having some weird thoughts that were coming to me. And I realized that those thoughts are not necessarily my thoughts. But I think it's indicative of the culture in the time we live in. There's fear, you're going to die. And I did a talk a few weeks ago on real and unreal fears. But I woke up and oh, you're going to die. Oh, you're going to have a tooth abscess and it's going to go to your heart and you're going to die of heart failure or some infection. I mean, crazy stuff happening. And I began to realize as I was praying, I didn't stop. I didn't receive it. I held it back. I said, pause. And I said, okay, God, what's up with this? And I felt like he said that there are people in your church, people around you that you're praying for who are struggling with fears. Often we'll try to find a means of control, whether it's the perfect N95 mask or the full body suit and armor or the scuba gear that I saw somebody went to Walmart with to buy their food, or just crazy, crazy stuff like that. We'll seek to try to find control. We'll try to find control in conspiracy theories. Oh, yes, I know. This is really what's going to happen. We often feed the very fears that we shouldn't be giving into, and we spend so much time focusing on the fears, we don't know how to live forward in our life. Fear can lead us to a place where we're only reacting to life rather than leading proactively into the purposes of God. Faith enables us to begin to see, have vision for what could be, the ability to then say, stand, no, to direct, to take my thoughts captive, to focus on where I need to go, and to control my mindset, control where my mind wants to go crazy, and we have weird, crazy thoughts happen to me. I guess I'm not immune from those things, but I tell you, I've learned how to sleep at night. I've learned how to trust God. I'll give you just one last little quick story. I remember walking out on those prayer walks back in the 80s and walking at night, and I'm in great shape. I'm not afraid of anybody. And suddenly, there's a monster. I'm like, there's a monster? There's this monster who lives in this certain area. And you're having this, what is that coming? It was I look back on it now and I laugh and I'm like, oh, the enemy didn't like me walking and praying, and so he's trying to get me off my game. If he can just get you off the game of the purposes you want, he wins. So there are real fears out there. Don't give in to these fears. Take them thoughts captive. Pray on those thoughts. Ask if they're yours. Ask yourself, are they from inside me? Is this my own fear? Because sometimes we're brought up with fears that we live under and in, that we don't even know. We just think it's normal, and yet it's not normal. And yet those things are the very things that push us back and away from the purposes and the greater things of God. So this was a longer message than ever, but I'll probably try to touch base with this a little bit more on dealing with our fears, because I think it's something we're all facing. So may God bless you. May he break the power of fear off of you. May he set your mind at ease and at peace. May he show you how to build faith in a time when fear is prevalent. God bless you.